Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn, which has been organised by CLIC, Cumbria Learning and Improvement Collaborative, and North Cumbria Integrated Care Knowledge and Library Service. It's great to see everyone here today, and I'm particularly pleased to welcome Joe Desborough, who's going to be talking to us all about the Together strategy. So just on the next slide, the idea of these Lunch and Learns is just a relaxed, informal space for health and care staff to come together and share experiences, learn something new relating to health and care, focus on some quality improvement, and of course be signposted to some further resources we hope might help in your roles. And the next slide gives you just a quick overview of the protocols for our session. Please note that we are recording. We should ask you to keep your webcams off unless you've been invited to speak. Please make sure you're on mute, of course, when you're not speaking. We will monitor the chat during the session, so you can use the chat to pose any questions or just pop in any comments. And we will have some time at the end to have a look at the questions or to ask people to contribute. As I said, we are recording, and the playlist of all previous Lunch and Learns is available on the CLIC YouTube channel, so you can go back and share any recordings, including this one, of course, with colleagues far and wide. Please pass it on in that respect, spread the word, both about today's and the previous Lunch and Learns, and we will pop a quick feedback survey for you to fill out in the chat. Your feedback's always welcome, and any suggestions for future topics and speakers, again, always welcome. So without further ado, I will pass you over to Joe.
Thank you very much, Tracy, and thank you very much everyone for attending today and for the invite to come and speak at today's session. Hello, my name is Joe Desborough, and I'm here presenting today. I work for Cumbria, Northumberland, Tyne and Weir NHS Foundation Trust, but specifically I work within our patient and carer involvement service, which is what I'm here to talk to you about today. So this session is on involving service users and carers in everything we do. And within my trust in CNTW, we do this through our Together strategy. And I'm going to kind of talk through how this strategy works, the 7 strategic ambitions of it, and what we kind of do to ensure that we are keeping people involved and collaborating and co-productive when we're creating anything new. I'm also going to share a little bit about my own personal experience, as well as how this service has had a life-changing effect on myself. So a couple of the details I'll be sharing today might be a little personal, possibly a little triggering at times. So please do, if you need to spend that time away, please to take that time for yourself and look after your own well-being. I won't go into too much detail, but I think it's important to get across a couple of elements. So without further ado, let me kind of take you through the presentation. So on the screen there, that is our Together strategy. So this strategy was launched in 2019. We're a relatively new service to the Trust, and it's building upon kind of good work that had come beforehand. And the whole thing was collaborated together and co-produced with service users, with their families, and with staff, all working together to come up with what they felt we needed to do to effectively involve people. And we've got our 7 ambitions there. So training, workforce, recruitment, what's working well and why, communication, leadership, and finally, at the very heart of it, service design and delivery. So when we asked people what we needed to do to kind of get this to work, they said it's all about changing culture. You know, we needed to see and feel that things were getting different, and this will be demonstrated through the actions of our service. And a lot about what I'm going to say today might not be reflective on your services, or you might do things in a very different way. And the thing is, there's no direct right answer, I think, to this. It's hopefully maybe out of some of the things that I say today, you might think about anywhere in your place of work that you could involve people and things that you could do to really keep people at the heart of everything you do, and take something from it. That's the best I can hope for. And we always say that, you know, involvement can have a habit of becoming very tokenistic, becoming something that's a tick box exercise. You know, this leaflet was created with patients, you know, and it's nice, and obviously it's lovely, but it's really important that we're starting with that collaboration from the start. asking people what they'd like to see in these leaflets, asking people what they'd like to see from these services, and and working with the community to offer a service for the community. It's for them after all. So we really like to push meaningful and effective involvement, and really support that kind of nourishment throughout the different services within our trust. But there's loads of different ways that we do it and different ways we kind of go through. So I'm going to go through them one at a time. I'm giving a couple of personal examples as well as kind of sharing a little bit about myself. So training is first and foremost. So this is together, we were all involved in the design and delivery of meaningful involvement. So we offer quite a bit of training, obviously, to staff and new staff coming into different teams. An example of one of the most involved trainings we have is our carer awareness training. So this is a training all about people working with families, what to expect, what they need to be aware of, what might give them the confidence that they need. And this is a co-produced training, and it is kind of mandatory for staff. And we always like to ensure that not only was it created and co-produced with lived experience within it, asking carers what they'd like staff to know, but we also make sure that when we deliver this training, that there is a carer present, there is someone there to actually talk about their experience and actually share that unique perspective that only they have with staff, so they really get an idea of what it feels like. We have a bank of people. We call it's our involvement bank. It's a database of nearly 200 people who volunteer their time to support us with these endeavours, which is absolutely wonderful, and we simply couldn't do it without them. And this kind of collection of service users and carers get involved in training in all the different aspects. Like I say, the development or the co-delivery of training all helps us to create these packages that we can send out to staff. So some feedback we've had kind of about this approach is a lot of staff have come back with, here's a direct quote here, having lived experienced carers was extremely powerful, and the session was much more engaging than it normally would have been. It brought a great deal of insight to the session, and staff had more questions and comments. I've delivered training for years, and this was the best one. And that is genuinely because of the carers' input, something that I would never have been able to bring. So it's a real powerful thing to really ensure that lived experience is within that training. And it really, really can leave a mark on staff members, which I think is really, really important. We're also very good at supporting kind of trust medical educations. So we get a lot of work with kind of Newcastle University and different places around what we can do to support students in their training. We do medical interviews, which is a really interesting thing, where kind of junior doctors and stuff do like trial runs of assessments with some of our members who come and talk about their experience, and then they can report whether they felt listened to, was the assessment valuable, and really feed that back from a patient perspective. And that's really, really helpful training, and we get a lot of nice feedback back from that, and also from the people doing it. They feel really empowered to come back and actually voice what would have been helpful in those assessments for them, to hopefully shape and change how things are in the future. Our next point is on workforce. So that's together we work as valued employees of the trust, based on the contribution we make. So within CNTW, we've had a rapid expansion of our peer supporters. So our peer support role is our employed lived experience role. So staff members with lived experience of mental health. We have now over 100 peer supporters embedded in a range of different services across the localities, and they make a real difference to the people they're working with, to really bring that lived experience not only just onto the ward or into the service, but into the staff team as well. And that's grown and continued to develop. So now there's not only peer support workers, but we have a little bit of a career progression. There's a senior peer supporter who plays that real kind of mentoring, supportive role, as well as some peer support supervisors who directly kind of oversee new peer supporters coming into place to really kind of help and grow these roles within the teams, because they are a unique role in their nature of kind of where they come from and their approach. And obviously they're coming in with this lived experience. So it's really important that we support their well-being and development through it. And it is so important to get people involved and develop their skills and keep them as a part of the organisation. So I mentioned before about the involvement bank and being a part of that, and one of the reasons I'm particularly really passionate about my work is because I never thought in a million years that I would be talking to you about this today, or even working for the NHS in any part. I was a member of that involvement bank. and I was also one of the first peer supporters in Cumbria when it was launched within CNTW. So I was born in Carlisle, and I was a young carer from about the age of 14 with a partner of mine who suffered from severe depression, anxiety, kind of suicidal ideation, and alcoholism. And it completely changed my life, as you can probably expect. I often felt quite naive to the world, especially at such a young age, and trying to go through education and life, but with someone who was struggling so much. And then at around when they were 20 years old, and I'm 25 now, so it wasn't too long ago. They had a very serious kind of attempt on their own life, which left them seriously injured, both physically and mentally. They ended up with fractured heels and a fractured spine, and suddenly the support became very much helping their physical needs as well as their emotional. They weren't able to walk for a long period of time. I ended up dropping out of work, a lot of my educational stuff, and it was a real traumatic time for both of us, at a really hard situation. And that is when I heard about the involvement bank, and at this time, I fully admit I wanted to do technical theatre and be involved in the arts and all of that kind of stuff. But I heard about the bank as an opportunity to use my lived experience to actually, turn a really bad time in both of our lives into something that could be positive in a way. So I was able to volunteer on the bank. That carer awareness training I spoke about before, I was very thankfully a part of the creation of that and the development of that. And the voice of the young carer is often so easy to miss, and is never really seen, and it's really sought for. So I really felt that I was speaking for, well, not speaking for people, but airing a voice that I didn't really see spoken about very often, in terms of what it's like at that age, and the serious impact it has on your life, education, work, opportunities, and things like that. So I joined the bank, and then from there, I was very lucky enough to progress into a peer support role. And now, as I sit as an involvement facilitator, I support other people from the community to come in and join the bank and hopefully develop onto peer supporters themselves. And as you can see, I'm quite passionate about it, because it completely changed everything for me. It turned one of the worst times in mine and my partner's life into an opportunity to actually make a change and make a difference. And I don't think I'd be here speaking to you if it wasn't for this service. So it's really important to think about what we can do to the people we're working with, and how we can help and support them and nurture them, if you can in any way, to support them to give back, because it is life-changing, absolutely life-changing. Moving on, recruitment is the next one. So we're continuing to see many opportunities come through our service in terms of recruiting people, in terms of recruiting peer supporters, but also getting people on panels and actually sitting on interview panels for our staff, really looking for those core values and principles. Like, too often, someone could be perfect for the job but lack the empathy or the people skills, or feel approachable or feel genuine, and that's something that someone could really look for. We do a lot of work with the crisis team, in terms of their call handlers, the people on the phone, the first port of call, and we get a lot of reports and a lot of feedback that people really struggle with that, especially if the person they're on the phone to during this crisis, they're not feeling listened to, they're not feeling responded to, they're not feeling like the person genuinely cares. They're just typing and taking notes and ticking boxes, and that's really important that person's in the room to support that recruitment. And we get really wonderful feedback from that. So a bank member who very recently supported one of these interviews said they felt a good part of the team and was made to feel equal to staff in terms of their opinions, and throughout the whole process it built on my confidence, and I felt very informed and comfortable. It played a real big part in me feeling valued, and I really feel this is something I want to pursue in my career going forward. So absolutely lovely to see that that's had a really nice impact on that individual. What's working well and why is the next one, and this one's kind of what it says on the tin. It's as it was said at the start by Tracy. It's putting forward, it's sharing what's actually going well and sharing what's not going so well with different places and different organisations to go how we can work together, how can we support each other and carry things forward. So we have a Trust-wide Share and Learn event. Where we kind of talk about what's going on in the different localities. I'm obviously based in Cumbria as the facilitator, but we've got central Newcastle, North Tyneside, Sunderland, got different facilitators from all over, and we're constantly wanting to share what's working well and also support each other where there's problems. You know, often things that work in central Newcastle don't work here in Cumbria because of our rural nature. But what can we do to change what they're doing and shape it to make it work for us? And how can we support each other in doing that? So obviously really, really important to share, as I'm sure you all know. And feedback. I feel obviously the basis of getting people involved is we're constantly hearing about people's experiences. We're constantly hearing about what people have felt like when they've been going through these services and going through our services. And it's amazing to have that feedback and that source of feedback to then be able to go into services and go, well, this individual wants to talk about their experience to hopefully develop and grow. And we offer people the opportunity to share their personal journey and their story, and we support them to do that, which is really, really lovely and empowering to see someone getting it off the chest and sharing what really worked well for them and to others, so that hopefully clinical staff as well as other people on the call who've got lived experience can take something from that and really learn. So shout out what's working well and why. Absolutely. Communication. So we need to help develop effective, accessible and meaningful methods of communication. The best example I can give for this is all about, we very recently did a review of all of our resources for families because they were outdated and they needed reviewed. And we knew the moment that this review started that it was about going to the families and going, what would a leaflet, what would need to be in a leaflet to be helpful for you, rather than us just guess. It's just so much easier to actually ask them directly, what can we do to help you in these situations, and what would have helped you at that time? And that's really helped to inform these new leaflets and these new resources that we've created. And it's our kind of big commitment that we want to make sure that in all of our communication, we need to be running it past the people it's for, absolutely, and having these discussions. And that's something that's really helped the quality of some of our resources over the last kind of year or so, as the kind of team has started to grow and build. And it's something we really want to push going forward. We also, with all of our posters and all of our stuff in terms of our internally, you know, we need to practice what we preach, of course. The design of the Together strategy you see on your left, the logos, the way it looks was all in conversation and co-produced with people with lived experience, people on the bank. You know, when we're selling and advertising our involvement back, we're asking the people on it, you know, what do you think would bring people aboard? What engaged you in the back? What worked well? So that we can really kind of bring it back and think about people's, you know, how people want to be contacted. There's so many different ways nowadays, you know, email, letter, call, text. What's easier, what would be beneficial, and what we can do, those little reasonable adjustments to really support in communication, because we're well aware as a trust it's probably the biggest bit of negative feedback we get is the quality of communication. So we're just really mindful about what we can try to do to kind of, you know, support that. Leadership. So together we embraced as equals, as leaders, and given opportunities to develop our leadership capabilities. So leadership's really important, but it's also important that there's that nice balance. We really try to stick to what is the triangle of care, which you might have heard of. And if you haven't, it's that balance between, you know, staff, the carer and the service user all being equal. There's no hierarchy. They're all part of this discussion and they're all supporting each other equally and helping each other out in these really difficult times. So one of our examples of how we kind of do this is we have trust governors. You know, it's a volunteer role, and these trust governors, some of them are lived experience based, carer governors, service user governors, and they're there to support that, to ensure that that voice is heard from the very top level. Our peers, as I said, there's that career progression of growth and development, and we're seeing peers in loads of teams now, absolutely all over the place, and then to see senior peers grow and support new people coming in, it is absolutely wonderful to see that progression. It's also amazing, you know, as I said before, I was on the bank before I became a peer, and I'm certainly not the only person who's done that, you know, and with when I started working here and getting people on the bank, I've had 2 of those individuals progress into employed lived experience roles, and to see their life change is what it's all about. You know, I see echoes of myself within it, and it's absolutely so lovely to see that they have found a place, and they're currently working on inpatient wards up at the Calvin Clinic, having an absolute blast, sharing their experience, and the fact that they can do it in a paid role is absolutely wonderful for them. And last but by no means least, as I said, the heart, and there's a reason it's in the middle of the whole thing, and that's service design and delivery. So we're all involved as equal partners in decisions. So that's why it runs through every single one. And when we launched this strategy, it was a new and flexible way to get people involved, involved in trust opportunities, and it provides staff with a way to meaningfully embed involvement in their service. You know, we're trying to provide them with the tools we can to support this involvement. We're aware it's a big task. You know, at the end of the day, people are overrun, staff shortages, you know, funding issues. So, and often, you know, things like this get shoved to the back. They get shoved last, which is you can see why and how easily that could happen. So we're trying to support with what tools we can help with and provide to support that. But we're just trying to keep that consistency of that collaboration and that co-production through all of it. And when we're making these decisions, we have all of our involvement meetings within our teams. We've got 2 groups, one for carers and one for service users, and then one kind of overall one. And in those meetings, when we're making decisions about what we do next, what's the next step, what's the next development, there is always carers or always service users at those meetings. And there needs to be that equal representation, that nice balance of staff to lived experience, so that these ideas, these new thoughts and ways of working are coming from us all collaborating and working together. But I appreciate that was a little bit of a whistle-stop tour of things we get up to in our Together strategy, and just some very minor examples of stuff that we do since it launched in 2019. So the work of the Trust on involving service users and their loved ones, you know, it's completely changed mine and my partner's life drastically. And as I said, I wouldn't be talking to you today if it wasn't for their support. And I'm incredibly proud to have the opportunity to encourage others to do the same. So I hope that this has been helpful in any way, or just interesting in a different way. I'm sure you can tell my passion for it. And if you've got any questions, I'll more than happily answer them. I'll make sure to put my email in the chat and things like that. But if you ever want to contact our team, there are all the links and all the stuff right there for you. But thank you very much. And as I said, happily answer any questions you have.
Thank you so much for that, Joe. Thanks for sharing some very personal experiences, and we really did get a sense of the passion that you feel around the value of peer support. I think it's been a great example of really successful co-production and a great way to empower service users and shape workforce plans. So I think people will glean a lot from this inspirational chat that you've just told us all about. Does anyone have any specific questions? You could feel free to put your mic on and come off mute if anybody wants to ask Joe anything directly. Not just now. We have nothing in the chat right now, but as you said, Joe, if you could pop your email details in the chat, and then people can get in touch if they think of something in the future.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there was one thing that I was just going to ask. Going back to the communication part that you were talking about earlier, about communication with families to inform resource development and, of course, the quality of resources like leaflets. Do you also produce things like leaflets in multiple formats? You know, are you able to produce them in audio versions or whatever it might be, whatever the needs are?
Yeah, so the main focus of that is we were fortunate enough to have like a patient information team within it. And the big thing nowadays is that on top of producing these leaflets, there obviously needs to be a digital version. And the website where all the digital versions have, very luckily, we have a tool that translates it into different languages. We try and, obviously there's easy read versions, but we try our best to keep everything on that level if we can, and to really, we've done a lot of work with our library services and with library services within universities around accessible and inclusive language, and making sure that we're thinking about that reading age and really supporting people to be able to access these documents. But those tools online, and I don't know if it's an app or whatever it is, but they're kind of like, you can click and it like speaks it out loud for you. It hits play and it reads out what's on the leaflet and what's on the website. So it's a really helpful tool. So that's something that's a standard that is across all of our documents anyway. So definitely something we try and ensure that we do when we're creating anything. So yeah.
Oh, that's great to hear. Yeah, I have a bit of a passion myself for health literacy and how health information is communicated to service users. Yeah, regardless of their role within the service. It might be families and carers or colleagues and friends as well. Yeah, there's so much health information out there, isn't there? Some of it's very tricky to understand.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Yeah,
we're a whole service that uses, it's for decades we use acronyms and jargon, and it's I remember as an individual coming in from from the carer perspective, I had absolutely no idea. That was the main part of my job when I first started, was going, I don't know what you're saying, and if I don't know what you're saying, then no one, other people outside of the NHS aren't going to know what you're saying either. So what can we do about that, to just be clear? So it's so important. It's really important.
It is. It's really important to keep it plain and simple, isn't it? Yeah, plain simple language. Yeah, because like you say, if you don't know what someone's talking about and the news that you're listening to is shocking, how are you going to compute and process and use that information? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So does anyone have any questions? Feel free to come and ask Joe. Take yourself off mute if you've got any questions now.
I'll put my email in the chat as well in case anyone wants to contact that one.
That's great. Okay, so if we don't have any questions right now, I've popped the link to the short feedback form in the chat as well. So your feedback's always welcome, as I said at the beginning, any suggestions for future lunch and learns as well. And the recording will be shared on the YouTube channel, the Click YouTube channel, so it can be accessed soon and shared with everybody. So thanks very much for everyone attending, and thank you, Joe, for a great lunch and learn today. The next lunch and learn will be on the 17th of October, and it's all about vaccinations and what you need to know. Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks, Joe. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Thank you.